everyone, and welcome to 6 Feet Ahead, a podcast for funeral homes. Today's guest is Jennifer Muldowney, better known as the Glam Reaper. Jennifer is a celebrant, author, and memorial planner who brings color, heart, and even humor to life's most difficult goodbyes. With over 15 years in the field, Jennifer is leading a global shift towards personalized, meaningful farewells that celebrate the individual. Let's dive into how she's transforming grief into something truly unforgettable. Jennifer, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So, Jennifer, you began your career as an event and wedding planner. Is
I
that
did.
right?
I did. It's over 16 years ago in Ireland. Back in Dublin's fair city in Ireland, I was a wedding planner, and unfortunately, two friends of mine died very close to each other. And yeah, I just found myself on the dark side of events. And for me, it was just seeing something that I felt needed something different. I found myself sitting in a church and sort of thinking, this isn't what I want. How can I plan my own funeral? And I did what most millennials do. I went home and I Googled some things, and there began the journey. I started Farewell Funeral Planners in Ireland. I went on to write my first book, and yeah, it just grew from there. So
Amazing. That's an amazing story. So
yeah.
many people that I speak with in this profession have entered it because of a personal experience, especially when
Yeah.
they're not generation, they're first generation. And it's always, unfortunately, oftentimes a moment that they're going through something and they realize that they feel like calling someone, right?
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about your style and your calling. You've been called the Glam Reaper.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard that. It said, I read it. It said you were called the Glam Reaper. And as I read through it, it says you've added elegance, humor to memorials. So I'm curious, as a nickname, what does that mean to you?
So it's interesting because I actually had a call about this where somebody was asking me, how did, I adopt the phrase, the Glam Reaper. And I'm like, I didn't adopt it. It was thrown at me by the Brits, actually, by the British media. When my first book came out, a lot of the newspapers picked up on it. It was obviously unusual for a young female to be in this space back then, and they published a giant page of my face. Oh my god, I've never been so mortified. And the Glam Reaper. And so at that time, when I was in business networking groups and situations, I was known as Dead Girl.
Oh, wow.
So honestly, the Glam Reaper was a step up, and I was happy to embrace it. But it wasn't actually until around COVID, or just before COVID, that I really embraced it. I did a bit of rebranding because we all had a lot of time on our hands. And yeah, the Glam Reaper is great. It's a stage name. It's great. Like, I did a TEDx talk. It's great when I'm on radio, TV, magazines. It's a great stage name, right? It's sensational. It catches your eye. Some people genuinely don't even know my real name. They just call me the Glam Reaper. But for a grieving family, I obviously needed something a little bit more soft, a little bit something like a warm hug. The Glam Reaper, if your grandmother, your mother, or your father, or whoever it is passes away, the Glam Reaper it's not, some people yes, but Muldowney Memorials was just that softer, warmer buzz. But the Glam Reaper, I will say, it does allow me, having the two different brands, and maybe it's because I'm a Gemini, I don't know, but having the two different brands allows me to be my authentic self in both. Because as I am outspoken, I'm honest, I don't hold back, and whether it's online or in person. And the Glam Reaper allows me to have a little bit of brevity, bring in a bit of humor sometimes when it's needed, and just really be myself. I will say it's a lot of pressure because I feel like I don't look glam 99% of the time, but whatever, we'll go with it. But then Muldowney Memorials allows me to be that sort of warm hug, and like our tagline is the best friend you never wanted to need. So it allows me to be that soft, condoling, warm person that I think I am too. So
That's awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome. So you give unique memorial services, right? And I'm
Yes.
just curious, can you give us an example of a unique memorial service that you've organized that really breaks the mold of the traditional funeral?
Yeah. So it's each family, everyone who's listening to this, who's a funeral director or works in the space at all, our families are all unique, right? There's no one size fits all. And yet that was what we were pushing for so long, right? Like here I was in Ireland 16 years ago, and one of my friends was atheist, and we were sitting in a church. What? That doesn't make any sense. So for me, every family is unique, and every family in their nuances and what they want. It's really about finding what the family values. Like sometimes, like for me, I know for my funeral, it'll be food, right? I love food. I love food and drinks. But for somebody else, it could be music. It could be the venue space. Everyone has their different nuances. And I'm not a competitor for funeral homes. I work with a lot of incredible funeral homes. I work independently then as well. So it's really not me versus you. It's about working together, because a lot of funeral homes don't have the bandwidth to go venue shopping and finding a beautiful space that perfectly fits the deceased. So I like, what's some unique ones? I've done memorials on yachts, like rosé parties on yachts in the south of France. I have done Viking funerals. I've done bond services. I've done ones where they were so specific to a cultural center. So say whether it was an Irish art center or the Ukrainian Institute or something where it actually meant something to the person living. And then I've worked with very corporate spaces where we've completely just elevated it and changed it. Music, flowers, and lighting can absolutely change a space from being bland. And I've had the funeral homes that I've worked with, I've actually had the funeral director be like, there's no way, Jen, I don't see it. And I'm like, just bear with me, the vision is here. And if I showed you the before and after, you wouldn't believe it. I've done services in church halls where the people just wanted food and drink, but they maybe wanted it to be really specific. I'm actually just this week, hopefully all going well, releasing a hospitality and memorial planning course that's specifically for funeral directors. So you don't need a Jen in your wheelhouse, but this can help you to expand your knowledge, expand just thinking outside the box. I know, like, I feel like that celebration of life, all these phrases are touted so often that we're bored of it. And so I really want funeral directors to know that I'm here to work with them, not against them. And it's about how can we all elevate this profession and this service together. It doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to cost a fortune. There are just small things that we can tweak in every funeral service that can make it special.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about that. I'm curious about your process. I'm curious about both your process, possibly when you speak to a family, and as well as your thought process. So what are the details or the experiences that you look for that allow you to incorporate things that are highly personal about that person?
Yeah. So it really comes down to listening. It really comes down to listening. And we all know this, right? It really comes down to listening. And it's listening when you're not even part of the conversation. So sometimes, like, I've been in arrangements where the funeral director is asking all the right questions, and there's obviously logistical things that have to be done. Having an event planner, and whether it's me or your local event planner, in the room with you when you're doing the arrangement, while you're focusing on the logistics, sometimes the family are having like little side conversations left and right, and having somebody in the room that just witnesses that and can see the reactions is really helpful. Having a second person, like a second opinion, because oftentimes they'll pick up on something that you haven't picked up on because you're too busy trying to get the statistical things, the logistical things that you have to do to get your job done, to make sure your licensing, to make sure everything is above board. And oftentimes it's the simplest questions. What was Dad's favorite color? That sounds like a very basic, stupid question. But when you ask somebody that, especially like when we've lost our loved one, like, it's the worst time of our lives. Our brains literally shut down and go into protective mode because it's all overwhelming. You can't imagine life without this person. So when you ask somebody such a basic question, they like it, it's easy for them to answer, or usually it can be easy for them to answer. It also might not be, but those little things help you. So if I said to you, like, what's your dad's favorite color? You might say blue, right? But I guarantee you, in the room, maybe you've just got one person, but if there's a room, maybe it's the wife and 3 of the kids or something, it might trigger a little memory of, oh my God, yeah, he always used to wear that stupid blue suit, or he'd always wear those socks, or yeah, do you remember he like insisted we do that? It just asking really basic, simple questions don't feel overwhelming for the family to receive. And you can write them down and email them, which I find helps as well, and allow them to think about it out of the pressure of being in the funeral home. So a lot of times I will send my questions via email or via text and say, listen, you don't have to answer all of these, but any information you can give me helps. Some people will send me voice messages. Some people will send me, it's everything pigeon carrier almost, but like any way that I can communicate with them about trying to get like what made dad. Because there's always something, like whether it's his recipe, whether it's his favorite chair he sat in that he had molded almost, it's whether it's his routine. And it's just listening to how the family are reacting to certain questions and maybe the little side conversations that they're having. And just when you catch something is like prodding and trying to open that up and say, tell me a little bit more about that one time he wore that suit. Can you give me an example? Because again, a lot of times we're focused on logistics that we almost, and it's like, it's a job. It is a job what we do. So it can become like, I just have to get this done because I have to call Mary in such, and I have to do this and I have to move fast and all that. It's taking a moment to just stop and breathe and listen to the story of somebody's life as opposed to all the logistics that you have to get done. And that is where I do believe having a celebrant or an event planner, a local event planner in the room with you to just help with that conversation. Because there's a lot of funeral directors that I work with that will tell you that having me come in as a celebrant is so helpful, because the amount of things families divulge to me that they don't divulge to the funeral director. And why is that? Because the funeral director is in the arrangement talking about the things that have to get done, whether it's death certificates, number of death certificates, whether it's social security, all of these important statistics and vitals. Whereas the celebrant, when I'm having a conversation with them, we're talking about the emotion, the service, and we're not talking about any of that logistic stuff. This is more of a squishy part of it. And so I'm then able to feed that back to the funeral director, and together then we can make the service really personalized. So yeah, I use squishy a lot.
That's fine. I think we all understand exactly what you mean when you say that. But now, okay, I'm curious, when we're talking about those services, those memorials, right? There, in a recent conversation that I had with another funeral director, we were talking about the whole purpose of doing a memorial service. And it was interesting. We all know this. If you're working inside of this profession, you know it, but most people on the outside don't realize that having those memorials, it creates that space to begin the grieving process, to truly begin it. I'm just curious, when you do your memorials, have you seen that there are any specific rituals or symbolic gestures that you find especially healing for today's families?
Gosh, that's a tough one. I was on a radio show last night, and the gentleman asked me, would I do anything unethical? And it's a similar answer is what I'm going to say, is that I won't do anything that I feel will harm a family or a person that I'm working with. And in the same way that we should always, as funeral professionals, be looking to help heal a family in whatever capacity that is. And this is like what my TEDx talk is about, is we all grieve completely uniquely. So how can you allow people to grieve I'm organizing a memorial right now for 1,000 people. How do you create a memorial that is going to be healing for 1,000 people when we all grieve completely uniquely? It's really, for me, it's really like, people are of two schools of thought, that a funeral is for the living or a funeral is for the dead. I personally disagree with both. I think a funeral is both for the living and the dead. I think it needs to be completely healing and cathartic for the living, but it also needs to represent authentically the deceased. And that's why I think pre-planning is so important. I sat down and I did a pre-plan with my own mum when I very much at the beginning of my career in this, and I could not believe the answers she gave me to questions, the flowers she did not want at her funeral, the song she chose at it. I was like, what? There's only me and my brother, so when my mum goes, it'll probably be left to me, right? And I'm going to be just completely not able to do it. So now I have a pre-plan that I can just hand to a local funeral director and say, make this happen, which is incredible. It's such a gift. but I would have not chosen. So I'll give you a laugh. One of the songs she chose was Rod Stewart's Maggie May. Now, her name's not Maggie, her name's not May. I'm like, what? How
But
did you come up with this? And I'm like, and of course, like dramatic. I'm like, Mom, my gosh, like I would have had wind beneath my wings because that's how I feel about you. Now, I know that people listening to this going, oh, Jen, but she's literally my support system. She's like my best friend. I would have 100%, and that's such a tearjerker, perfect funeral song. She was like, no, absolutely not. It has to be Rod Stewart because that's who she was with her girlfriends. And that's who we'd dance to. And I know they'd all get a giggle out of it. So we are all quite specific about our funeral. So to me, that's what makes it healing for everybody else, because there's nothing more beautiful, Oscar, than when you're at a funeral service and you resonate with the person doing the eulogy or the person speaking. Maybe there's 4 speakers, but there's tidbits in that you're like, oh yeah, I remember when Jen used to do that. Oh God, yeah, she really did like a martini. Or God, yeah, she used to say squishy a lot. Or there's nothing more beautiful than when you resonate with somebody who you've never met, but is talking about the person you have in common. Because at the end of the day, whether it doesn't matter what your faith is, when you're at a funeral, you are there for the deceased. You are not there to get mass or whatever it might be. You're there for the deceased. And that's the one thing everyone in the room, all 1,000 of these people I'm going to be doing this memorial for, will have in common, is this one person. So that to me is what you focus on, and that allows you to start the healing. And whether that healing is everyone seated on yoga mats as opposed to pews, whether it's doing a rain dance, whether it's releasing butterflies, whether it's having an 8-piece orchestra, whatever it might be, or whether it's just 10 people getting together for a picnic in Central Park, whatever it is, that's what's going to be cathartic and healing for those people, I think.
Wonderful. So that kind of sounds like it's directly related to their storytelling, right?
Yeah.
I guess you could say that storytelling seems to be a powerful thing in helping people remember and grieve.
Yeah.
And creating these memorial services are all part of telling the story of their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
Because think of everybody, even somebody super young, like you've 2 sons, like no matter what age they are, they've chapters in their lives.
Yeah.
The only babies maybe don't have chapters just yet, but we all have chapters in our lives, and we've all had people come and go. We've all had workplaces we've come and left. We all have chapters, and each of those chapters makes us. And so our funerals should encompass as much of that as we can physically squish into the service. It really should, because you could have somebody sitting in the audience who knew me in primary school, in like baby school back in Ireland, and you could have somebody who just recently worked with me. Please God, I have another 50 years to go, but you could have somebody who just lived in the retirement facility with me, and they know Jennifer Muldowney from 2 different aspects and chapters of her life, but what they have in common is hopefully the love of Jennifer Muldowney. And so how beautiful is that to just unite?
No, absolutely. I love it. Let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing, right? Things are changing. Sustainability seems to be a big thing now. I'm all into reading about these new mycelium mushroom coffins that are coming. Have you seen any growing interest in anything like green funerals, environmentally conscious options, anything like that?
Oh, 100%. I was involved in a company, an Irish company, gosh, many years ago now. I think is it 10 years ago? Probably 10 years ago. And unfortunately, it made it and then it didn't. And that was due to corporate bickering and whatnot, which it was a learning lesson for me, because I never realized how many incredible startups don't actually are not a success because of internal conflict and money, let's be honest. But so that being involved with them back then has definitely piqued and kept my interest in all things eco, and just watching like the interest build of human composting, water, cremation, all of these different things. And I'm sure there's going to be many more to come. I think the space is so fascinating. I always say my 3 obsessions are digital, legacy planning, eco and environmental, and then planning. Obviously I chose planning, but because they're full-time jobs, just staying on top of how things are evolving in each of those categories is a full-time job. So it's an avid interest. It's not something, unfortunately, I can be complete expert on, but just watching how everything is evolving is very fascinating. Watching people not go through, because back in Ireland, like 16 years ago, when somebody passed away, you went to the local funeral director and you went to the local church. That was just what you did. And now that's changing. We even have a water cremation facility in Ireland, little old Ireland. And I actually think human composting could be extremely popular there. But I know Ireland will be like, sure, Jesus, that's what we used to do hundreds of years ago anyway, just throw them in the back field. But it is interesting to watch how we have completely flipped back. We're going backwards to people wanting to be shrouded and not casketed effectively, and how embalming, while it's still popular and people are learning more about it. And I think the rise of death doulas, and which I have some thoughts about, but like the rise of the death doula trend, while can have some negativity attached to it, I do think is being great in terms of educating the public and putting it out, making it trendy. Because I know back when I started, nobody wanted to talk about this. Nobody. There was no such thing as a me, as far as I knew anyway, 16 years ago. Like, a lot of funeral homes didn't have websites, they faxed things. Like, it has come on massively in the last 16 years. And the dawn of social media and TikToking, in with the good comes the bad. But all of these things are putting it into the palm of people's hands because it's on their phones. And so they're learning more. Now, they're not necessarily learning correctly. Talk about the fake news, because I've had to educate people that you can't just become a tree, because at the end of the day, your ground bone is bone, and it's not, you have to change the pH balance in order for it to germinate and become into a tree. But there was a lot of this fake news. What was it called? Promession, I remember, was a huge thing. Susan, I forget where she was based, in Switzerland or Sweden or Denmark or one of those. And she never actually had a working unit. Promession it was called, but she never actually had a working unit. She was the queen of PR. I think she's actually deceased now. Sorry, I said PR, public relations. My accent will confuse people. But it was in the news left and right. You couldn't get away from Promession, this new environmentally friendly version of cremation. It was going to vibrate you and break your bits apart, and oh yeah, this was the whole thing. It would freeze you and then wiggle it. We actually tried it in one of the companies I worked with. We tried it on a pig, where we froze the pig and we put it on a vibrating plate. His ear fell off. That was it. So she never did. We did contact her. She never did actually have a working unit. So there's a lot of fake news out there as well. So it's trying to, I feel like it's an onus on the funeral industry and funeral profession. I know I just said industry, controversial, sorry.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I know. Is that it's on us. It's an onus that we have to step up to educate the public. So if you're not on social media, somebody else is giving the education, and maybe they're giving it incorrectly, but you sitting and begrudging and being a curmudgeon behind your desk and not getting on social media, you're not helping. And I feel like a lot of the professionals in the space need to stop jumping on the defense and go talk about my football talk, the American football, I go on the offense. Not really. I don't follow any American sports. I'm terrible at it. But yeah, like when the HBO's The Mortician came out, everyone just jumped on the defense. It was just terrible. And I'm going to say something controversial here, Oscar, that I actually haven't said anywhere else online. I'm probably going to get annihilated for it. But one of the things that I was really shocked, I waited for somebody to say it, that I was really shocked and disappointed, honestly, that nobody did, is, yes, is it horrific what he was at? Yes, is he a criminal? Yes, I'm not condoning 1 ounce of what that man did. But instead of defending our stance, which I feel like, and that's why I created my podcast, is to show the human side of the funeral business, is because we're always annihilated in the media for our price and tactics in general, the used car sales strategy. Is this was a horrific man, a horrific case, but just something can be sensationalized in any other industry. Rather than jumping on the defense of it, like, peel back as to what else was going on in that. There was something he said that I can tell you right now, a lot of other Americans agree, and a lot of other people around the world agree. And he said that he was putting 10 bodies into the one cremation unit and cremating them at the same time. because he believed once you're dead, that's it. So he had no problem, obviously, taking jewelry and gold teeth and all of the terrible things that he did. He had no problem doing it because he, as far as he was concerned, you're dead, that's it. There is a lot of people in this world that agree that once you're dead, and they don't believe in any of the cultural and faith things that a lot of us do. And that's something that I purport in my business in general, is that you do you. Like, it's, we're all unique. And here's the thing, I guarantee you, and maybe I should do a poll, I guarantee you there are people out there that would have no problem with a communal cremation.
I'm sure that there's some. Right?
Controversial. There's people that work with budget online cremation companies, budget funeral homes, and these people, like, wedding planning and funeral planning are two very different things. I was a wedding planner, now I'm a funeral planner. There's nuances that are very different in both, but one of the biggest ones is when I used to present my price list for a wedding, it was rarely met with the amount of questions and penny pinching or nickel or whatever you want to call it as it is with funeral planning. And it's because we're a wedding, usually there's two people in it, they're excited to do it, the emotions are happy and all positive, they've been saving, they have been planning for months. Whereas with a funeral, they've just lost their loved one, it can be suddenly, and now you're asking them to pay for it. You're asking them to literally put their hand in their pocket and give you money for something that some of them don't necessarily, but we legally have to do. So I can guarantee you that there are some people out there who, whether it's for budget reasons or out of just faith, that they would have no problem with a communal cremation. We do it for pets. And I think that, I'm not suggesting that everyone's going to be into this, and I think it's very controversial, but there you go, I just threw it out there.
Understood. So things are changing, right? There's a ton of change happening. People are approaching death in a different way, memorials, disposition, but there's also a lot of things that are happening as far as technology is concerned and how that's affecting this profession. I won't say industry, profession. What innovations are you excited about when it comes to the future of funerals and grieving? And I'll give you a few examples: digital memorials, anything involving AI. Recently, in a conversation I was having with someone, it was really interesting. They said, can we create an avatar of a person who's passed away and feed an AI model information about the person as much as we can get, and actually carry on a conversation with that person?
Yeah.
In theory, we can definitely do that.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things that are going on. Anything in particular that excites you?
Oh, I don't know if I'm excited about it. The holograms and everything. We had Michael Jackson, we had Tupac. Like, we've had that on the celebrities / luxury high end death space. So it's been there for, I think, even maybe decades. I don't know. It's definitely a decade. It's only going to evolve. It's only going to get more. It is an incredible way to preserve people's legacy, preserve people's voices. I think it's great if it provides comfort to the family to have an avatar or have a vote, just audio of my grandmother, for example, taking a clip that we have of her and suddenly having her maybe welcome us to her own memorial. I think there's a lot of great things. I think we have to be really careful with it. I also think it's something that we as funeral professions need to keep educating ourselves about and stay on top of, because there are so many things that are evolving. Even for me, like, I feel like every day is a learning day when you find something new. And I've addressed it with clients, I've spoken about grief and AI on panels because it is something I'm really passionate and interested in. I think it's going to be eons, if ever, that the law catches up with it, which is scary because I think there's a lot of dangerous parts to it. Even as a living person, I think there's a lot of really scary things. I literally had to have a conversation with my parents where I we've come up with a secret code, a question and an answer, that I'm like, if somebody's, I have your daughter and I want 10 grand, which I hope they'd ask for more, but anyway, I want 10 grand. My dad would probably say keep her, but I would hope that we've arranged a question. I'm like, you ask me this question, and if I don't answer it right, then this is the wrong. It's getting scary. It is getting scary. I do think it's really helpful to funeral homes. You've got your obituary writing. You've got a lot, honestly. You can create anything with ChatGPT. And I think as long as you are babysitting it, you and I have talked about this, as long as you're making sure that you edit it, that you're not just firing things out without even looking at things. Like blogs is obviously a hugely popular one. It's just trying to stay on top of it. I don't know, like the ones I'm excited about, I love the idea of the holograms and the grief bots, because I do think sometimes it's easier. Me, myself, I'll have a chat with ChatGPT, almost like my therapist. When I think I'm being irrational, I'll be like, what's this? And they'll give me, and they're actually your biggest fan as well. They're great.
Yes, they are.
They really are. Like, if you're having a bad day, just put in, listen, to give me something good. I need you to brighten my day. So I do think there's really positive things. It's a bit like when the internet was invented. In with the good comes the bad. And my hope is that the good outweighs the bad. And one thing I will say that I am actually excited about, I saw it in a funeral convention where they were talking about it. With this, I do think is super, super helpful for memorial planners and for funeral directors and anybody out there who gets a photo of somebody and can remove the background and can add in the rest of the photo. So say, for example, your favorite photo of your mom is, and I'm going to do like where I'm off the screen. Oh, it's following me. Anyway, where I'm off, stupid technology, but like where I say my face is half cut off, or I was beside somebody so they're mushed up against me. The fact that you can make that the portrait photo, I think is really special, actually.
Wow. Yeah. And all of this is so doable. I think there's some there's some dangers, and we definitely have to have some guardrails, but there's also some wonderful things that could come of all this. Jennifer, I want to thank you so much for your time. Everything that you shared with us was amazing. And if anybody would want to get in touch with you, what would be the best way to reach out?
Hit me up on socials, any social media. I'm on TikTok, Instagram. I'm not on X/Twitter anymore, but yeah, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram is where I'm at. Or just head to my website, MuldowneyMemorials.com.
MuldowneyMemorials.com. You got it. Thank you so much. Wishing you the best.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you.